Few ordinary pennies carry tales more surprising than those stamped 1983. As copper-plated zinc discs that changed how every pocket cent weighed in, they've become the subject of late-night roll hunts and hushed exchanges among seasoned collectors. Today, our focus lands squarely on these seemingly mundane cents, revealing how striking missteps at the mint and leftover bronze planchets turned everyday change into auction block stars. Lincoln's portrait has gazed from our 1-cent coins since 1909, but the true revolution came in late 1982 when the U.S. Mint swapped solid bronze for a core of mostly zinc with a thin copper exterior. That tweak shaved off nearly a gram per coin and saved millions in metal costs, yet it also set the stage for a duo of errors. Early in the new process, some bronze blanks from the previous era found their way under the press. The result? A handful of cents that weigh the heavier bronze standard and ring with a brighter tone when tapped, betraying a secret alloy inside. Around the same period, a small run of reverse dies shifted imperceptibly between hubbing stages. On those handful of coins, the lettering of United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent shows a ghost of doubling, as though the words were stamped twice with slight misalignment. Dubbed the 1983 doubled die reverse, this variety presents hefty, squash shadows behind the letters, an error that leaps out under even modest magnification and sparks excitement at first sight. Collectors chase both varieties, the hefty bronze survivors and the eye-catching doubled dies. Bronze planchet pieces tip the scale at about 3.1 grams, roughly a quarter heavier than their zinc counterparts, and they display a deeper, more muted copper tone. Under white light, their reddish surfaces lack the bright sheen of a plated zinc cent, instead echoing the warmth of the older memorial design. Their scarcity is tied to the overlap of old and new inventories in early 1983. Once the supply of bronze blanks dwindled, the mint refined its process, and no more slipped through. Meanwhile, genuine double die reverses have that unmistakable blur behind each letter, especially visible on the crisp lines of 1 cent. True examples boast bold shadows that blend into the field, and the strongest show doubling wide enough to spot without any tools. Fakes and weak strikes abound, so savvy collectors compare against certified examples or trusted photographic references before committing. When these rarities surface at auction, price tags often boggle the mind. A top-grade bronze planchet in Mint State 65 recently reached the high 5-figure mark, driven by both its weight anomaly and superb surface. That same event saw an MS 68 double die reverse smash through its estimate, climbing into the mid-4-figure arena. Lesser grades still command respect. Circulated bronze examples in about uncirculated condition trade around $3,000 to $5,000, while mid-grade double dies, even with light wear, can fetch several hundred to over $1,000 depending on eye appeal and strike definition. Value swings dramatically with condition. A heavily worn bronze planchet might only draw a few $100s if scratches and circulation marks obscure its luster. In contrast, a flawless MS 66 specimen, showing full cartwheel sheen and crisp strike detail, can double or triple that figure. Double die reverses follow a similar trend. An MS 67 example, with bold, unbroken doubling and full red coloration from the copper plating, represents a hot ticket at shows and online platforms. Lower-grade pieces, where doubling appears faint or surfaces bear bag marks, still interest specialists and often trade hands for low to mid-3-figure sums among dedicated error coin collectors. To spot genuine bronze carryovers without a scale, an experienced ear and eye do wonders. A soft tap on a glass countertop yields a muted tone. Unlike the brighter zing of a zinc core cent visually, the color of an authentic 1983 bronze is deeper, almost resembling earlier 70s memorial cents. And when it comes to double dies, a loop at 10 power makes the mistake obvious. Letters bulge and merge, giving the reverse a. Shifting our gaze to the Lincoln cent minted in 1989 opens another chapter in unexpected penny lore. While the profile of Lincoln and the memorial reverse remained unchanged, that year's output carried subtle quirks waiting to be uncovered. Over 7.26 billion cents rolled off the presses in Philadelphia and another 5.35 billion in Denver, making 1989 one of the highest mintage years in modern penny history. Yet amid those vast numbers, a handful of coins slipped through with telltale signs of mint missteps and leftover materials, transforming everyday copper-plated zinc into prized rarities for seasoned collectors. First, the double-die obverse variety demands a trained eye. On authentic examples, you'll catch slight doubling on "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date numerals, almost like a faint shadow echoing each letter. True specimens reveal crisp, parallel outlines behind each character, a fingerprint of misaligned hubbing during die preparation. Because genuine FS 101 examples display doubling bold enough to spot under modest magnification, they stand out in a jar of common sense and become instant conversation starters at coin shows. Beyond die doubling, the carryover of pre-1982 bronze planchets makes a rare cameo. Although the mint aimed to eliminate solid bronze blanks by late 1982, a few slipped into the hopper in early 1989. These heavier, solid copper discs weigh roughly 3.11 grams, about a quarter more than their zinc core siblings, and ring with a higher-pitched ping when lightly tapped against glass. Their warmer, deeper red hue also contrasts with the brighter sheen of plated zinc, creating a visual cue for collectors who know what to look and listen for. Other minting mishaps add to the year's intrigue. Off-center strikes, where part of the design falls outside the planchet edge, appear in varying degrees and regularly trade hands for $40 to $150 depending on severity. Clipped planchets, blank discs missing a segment before striking, fetch similar sums, especially when the clip intersects Lincoln's portrait or the wreath outline. Broadstrikes, too, offer a subtle spread at the rim and can draw $75 to $200 among error enthusiasts, each coin telling its own mechanical tale of pressure and placement. Auction records highlight the premium these anomalies command. A solid bronze 1989 planchet error certified at an exemplary grade once soared well above $7,000 in a specialist sale, while top-graded double-die obverse examples, fresh from the grading service, have breached the $2,500 mark. Even mid-grade FS 101 coins certified MS65 red routinely trade for $800 to $1,200, eclipsing the few $100s collectors expect to pay for a flawless, non-error Lincoln cent at that grade. Condition remains the ultimate price driver. A raw FS 101 in about uncirculated condition might sell for $400 to $600, while certified MS66 red examples climb into the $2,000 range. Solid bronze planchets see a similar tiered market. Circulated, worn survivors bring four-figure sums, but a pristine MS65. Shifting gears to the turn-of-the-century production of the humble penny, the 2002 issue stands out not just as another dollar-defeating cent, but as a treasure trove of subtle quirks and errors that can turn a common coin into a collector's jackpot. Struck against the backdrop of post-millennium optimism and a booming numismatic market, this penny carries the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse, while hiding surprises that even seasoned enthusiasts might overlook until they spot a telltale anomaly. The Lincoln cent design by Victor David Brenner had been through minor tweaks since its 1909 debut, and by 2002 the obverse still showcased that iconic bust of Lincoln framed by the simple mottos. But 2002 marked a quieter pivot in minting quality control, a period when rising interest in error coins prompted the U.S. Mint to experiment with die materials and pressing pressures. What appears as a routine mid-year issue becomes fascinating when you consider how slight variations in die hardness and lubrication could give rise to doubling, die cracks, and other offbeat blemishes that slipped past inspectors. On the Philadelphia and Denver presses, production volumes soared into the billions, but that volume only amplified the chances that something would go awry. One of the most eye-catching anomalies is the off-center strike. When blanks aren't perfectly centered under the die, part of the design is cut off, sometimes by just a hair, other times by as much as 40%. A 2002 P off-center strike with 10 to 15% of the memorial design missing can command $50 to $75 in higher grades, while more dramatic off-centers, with half the design absent, have sold for upwards of $300 when the date remains fully legible. Doubling on the 2002 obverse, known as a double die error, emerged when the master hub impressed the working die twice at slightly different alignments. The result is ghost images on Lincoln's profile or the date, often visible only under magnification. A sharp doubled 2002 or slightly thickened letters in God We Trust can elevate a run-of-the-mill cent into a $150 to $200 prize at MS-65. Even circulated examples with clear doubling reach $30 to $50, thanks to their visual intrigue. Repunched mint marks are another category that draws sharp-eyed collectors. At the Denver Mint, the D punch sometimes shifted between impressions on the die, overlaying a second, off-register D over the first. Those repunches range from subtle ghost marks to bold, overlapping mint marks you can spot with the naked eye. Depending on severity, such RPM, repunched mint mark, cents trade from $20 in circulated grades to $125 to $175 when mint state surfaces display both crisp detail and the double D ghost. Less common but equally fascinating are missing mint mark errors. On rare occasions, a grease-clogged punch failed to transfer the P or D entirely, leaving a blank patch where the mark should be. These no-mint mark treasures are most valuable when paired with full, undistorted devices elsewhere on the coin. An MS-63 no-mint mark 2002 can fetch $400 or more, particularly if the fields show smooth satin luster. Then there are die cracks, tiny hairline fractures that spiderweb across the coin's face as the dies fatigue. On a Lincoln cent, cracks through Lincoln's coat lapel or the memorial columns can add $10 to $20 in mid-grade examples and jump to $50 to $75 at MS-65, simply because each crack tells a story of steel under stress and countless strikes gone by. Putting a price tag on these anomalies relies heavily on condition. In average circulated grades like VF25, very fine, most plain 2002 pennies trade for face value plus a small premium, about 10 to 25 cents apiece. Error pieces in circulated grades, such as a modest off-center or gentle doubling, begin around $5 to $10, making them affordable entry points for even casual collectors. Once coins enter the uncirculated realm, values rise steeply. An MS-60 2002 P-cent without notable errors might sell for $1.50 to $2.50, while an MS-63 RB, red-brown, variant moves into the $3 to $5 range. Red, RD, specimens, with upwards of 95% original red luster, can bring $7 to $10 at MS-63, soaring to $20 plus at MS-65. Those with significant errors in red grade command even higher premiums. A 2002 D off-center strike graded MS-64 RD has been known to top $350 in specialty auctions. Auction records underscore the potent mix of rarity and condition. In 2024, a bold 12% off-center 2002 P-cent graded MS-66 RD realized $1,020, surprising many who believed off-centers were solely the domain of classic coins. That same year, a faint double date on a 2002 D served that what once passed unnoticed in pocket change can sometimes carry a value that jolts even seasoned numismatists awake. At the heart of the 1968 penny lies a chapter in American coinage defined by continuity and subtle change. The Lincoln cent, introduced back in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had by 1968 already cemented its place as the most widely circulated U.S. coin. That year, Philadelphia and Denver mints struck billions of cents, yet the sheer volume belied hidden variations that command attention today. A combination of shifting minting practices, spurred in part by rising metal costs, and evolving quality control measures set the stage for anomalies that would slip through the cracks and go on to fetch handsome sums decades later. A closer look at the 1968 design reveals continuity in the portrait of Lincoln by Victor David Brenner, but beyond that familiar face lies a landscape of minute details that distinguish one cent from another. Collectors hunt for lightly struck mint marks, delicate die cracks, and subtle doubling on the inscriptions. Among the most sought after are those coins bearing an exceptionally sharp D mint mark on the reverse, evidence of a tightly engraved die and precise striking force. Another hallmark of rarity comes from coins with faint, barely visible mint marks, where early die polishing left only a ghost of the letter, turning a common date into a collector's prize. Yet it is the error coins from this series that often steal the spotlight. Off-center strikes, where the design appears clipped at the edge, can command premiums of 2 to 3 times their face value, depending on how dramatically the design is displaced. Even more coveted are the double-die obverse varieties, in which the letters and date exhibit a faint ghost image offset by a hair's breadth. Such doubling occurred when the die received 2 misaligned impressions during hubbing, leaving a permanent doubled image on every striking die produced from it. True examples of this error, identified by crisp shadow lines, can fetch several $100s in uncirculated grades. Current market values for 1968 pennies depend heavily on condition and specific variety. In circulated grades like VF20, very fine, a standard Philadelphia issue might sell for around 50 cents, while a sharper Denver coin might top $1.50. Mint state, MS, 63 pieces often cross auction blocks at $10 to $15, with pristine MS65 examples reaching $25 or more. Auction records highlight the real potential. A flawless MS60 1968 D double die cent sold for $1,200 in a 2023 Heritage auction, underscoring the sky-high ceiling for top-grade rarities. Those seeking off-center strikes have seen pieces bring in $300 to $600 each, depending on the degree of off-centering and the presence of full design elements. Stories abound of collectors finding these anomalies in everyday coin rolls. One Pennsylvania hobbyist recounted discovering a 1968 D penny with a pronounced rim crack, which later achieved a remarkable grade of MS64 red, RD, selling privately for $450. Another tale features a Denver collector who unearthed a large lettered Lincoln cent with a double date error, where faint traces of a previous 65 date lingered beneath the stamped 68. This curious occurrence, likely caused by die repurposing, fetched over $700 when authenticated by a leading grading service. Condition plays a decisive role in determining value. Circulated pieces, even those with minor mint mark or strike variations, remain relatively affordable, trading hands in the $1 to $5 range. Once coins enter the uncirculated realm, with original mint luster intact and only the slightest handling marks, values climb steeply. In MS60 mint state, a typical 1968 penny might sell for $7, but by MS64, prices jump to $20 or more. Collectors prize red, RD, designation, indicating at least 95% of the original red copper hue survives, over the lesser brown, BN, grades, and coins certified RD can secure premiums of 20 to 30%. For those who obsess over the finest details, the distinction between mint shifting gears from that misaligned Lincoln like a secret puzzle piece, let's zero in on a penny that quite literally fell broadside off the press. In early 1982, the U.S. Mint was still transitioning from the traditional 95% copper planchet to the newer copper-plated zinc core, a change born of economic necessity. As millions of those fresh zinc cents passed through the machinery, a handful slipped through before the collar fully closed, resulting in wildly misaligned strikes. Those coins, known today as the 1982 broadstrike error pennies, have become modern legends, a moment when a common cent stretched into numismatic stardom. Back in January and February of 1982, the mint's presses were adjusted to accommodate the lighter zinc-based blanks. That meant tweaking the collar that holds the planchet in place while the dies stamped Lincoln's portrait. If that collar opened a fraction too wide, the blank would expand outward under the die's force, creating a broad, thin coin with a raised rim that extends well past its normal 19mm diameter. These were never intended. They slipped into circulation unnoticed until a few sharp-eyed collectors picked them out of change. Today, those same off-calibration cents stand as a testament to the minting process's fallibility and the serendipity collectors live for. Finding an authentic 1982 broadstrike isn't as straightforward as spotting a slipped hub doubling. For one, the degree of broadness varies. Mild examples might only measure 19.5 millimeters, still within mint tolerance, while dramatic broadstrikes can exceed 20 millimeters, sometimes reaching 21 millimeters or more. On the obverse, Lincoln's face can appear flattened, with the date and motto pushed toward the center. The reverse is wheat stalks may seem sunken, and in extreme cases, the rim becomes so distorted the words e pluribus unum loop around a warped edge. Weighing the coin helps too. A broadstrike may tip the scale at 2.2 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, thanks to its stretched profile. Unlike doubled dies, which depend on die misalignment, broadstrikes hinge on the collar's failure, an entirely different error category. This rarity in the minting stages meant far fewer broadstrikes made it into collectors' hands. Estimates suggest only a few hundred genuine 1982 broadstrikes survived, and of those, fewer still remain in high grades. Authentication relies on precise measurements of diameter and thickness, plus examination under low-angle light to reveal the spread. Fake broadstrikes can be manufactured by delicately filing down the rim of a regular set. Watch out for inconsistent thickness or tool marks along the edge as red flags. As for current market value, these broadstrike cents routinely outperform their face value by orders of magnitude. A well-centered, lightly circulated example graded -50 Australian dollars might sell for $200 to $300. Move up to MS 63, and you're looking at $500 to $700. The real fireworks begin in the MS 65 and above territory. Coins graded MS 66 have recently fetched $1,200 to $1,800 at major auctions. In 2024, a PCGS MS 67 broadstrike 1982 sold for $2,250, setting a new benchmark for the series. Smaller private sales often hover slightly below auction figures, but demand remains fierce. Any broadstrike that clears the 20mm mark in top grade can spark a bidding war. Behind those numbers lie fascinating stories. One collector recounts finding a perfectly preserved broadstrike while sorting through an inherited stash of coins.